On today's episode, we are joined by Bassmaster Elite Series angler Kyle Patrick. We have Kyle on to talk about some of the more lighthearted and fun moments on the Elite Series, and we break down his 3 go-to baits that he catches the vast majority of his fish on. All that and more on this episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
Welcome to the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. We have a jam-packed show for you today, a conversation that I really think you guys are going to enjoy. But first, we are brought to you in part by American Legacy Fishing. And the folks at ALF have been in our corner for years, helping us produce this show week in and week out, all while providing you, the listeners, with the best fishing gear at the best price, with the best service that you will find in the entire fishing industry. Whether you're looking for brand new rods and reels from Daiwa, G. Loomis, Shimano, Dobbins, 13, Abu Garcia, Fenwick, Megabass, Lew's, Duckett, and more, or whether you want to grab some of your favorite lures from Berkley, Beast Coast, Megabass, Strike King, Rapala, any of those, or maybe you're just looking to browse the internet's best selection of high-quality, lightly used fishing rods and reels from your favorite brands, you should be checking AmericanLegacyFishing.com. They have a price match guarantee right there on the website in writing. They have a fantastic loyalty and rewards program with the American Legacy Elite program, which gives you free shipping with no minimums and 10% back on every single order. And they have your favorite coupon code on the internet, Tackle Talk 10. That saves you 10% on almost everything on the website that's not already on sale or not one of the few exceptions that are out of their control. Everything else on that website, 10% off with code TACKLETALK10 over at www.americanlegacyfishing.com, the first place you should check for your favorite fishing gear. All right, everybody, before we get to Kyle here, first things first, Major League Fishing and the Bass Pro Tour just wrapped up Stage 5 at the Chowan River in North Carolina that went June 4th through 9th. Now, the last event that we had with Major League Fishing was heavy hitters with some different and odd rules and qualifications and things like that. This is back to a regular Major League Fishing format with all 77, I think, anglers competing, going head-to-head for another coveted red trophy. So per usual here today, we're going to go through your top 10 in reverse order. 10th place was Fred Rabanus, 9th place Ott Defoe, 8th place Zach Burge, 7th place Matt Becker, 6th place Alton Jones Jr., 5th place Justin Lucas, 4th place Jacob Wheeler, 3rd was Dustin Connell, 2nd Michael Neal, and your Stage 5 champion, a victory that we all knew was coming soon just by watching him over the past year, our friend Drew Gill.
Congratulations, I believe you won this time.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't know what to do. What?
Tell us about your day, Drew.
Oh my gosh. Well, we just wrapped up the championship round here at the Chowan River, Stage 5. I think I came out with this one. Oh my gosh. You know, about a little over 2 hours ago, I had cast. I pitch up by this deadfall and hooked one. It was probably 5.5, 6 pounder. Worked it for probably 45 seconds. Even got my line under a rope and fed my rod under the rope. Got it back tight and was still fighting her. Brought her all the way up to the boat. Saw her 3 times and she just came off at my hands. And at that moment, you know, I was kind of feeling the whole day unravel. And I was like, you know, at that moment I started praying. I was like, Lord, please help me care about my job and what I'm doing and the dreams I want to chase and claim. But, you know, regardless of the outcome, at least, you know, I just wanted to have peace the rest of the day. You know, enjoy the awesome fishery, the awesome crowd in the town, and everybody that's, you know, made this such a good event. I just, you know, had to take a step back and go, I need to be appreciative of what I've got in this opportunity. And, I was able to fish mostly relaxed this afternoon and just wanted to, go out there, maybe reel in a few and enjoy that and let the chips fall where they may. And we came out on top, so I don't know what to say.
I got to tell you, stand right here. Normally I tell you to go over and grab that trophy, but we've got a very special person here to present the trophy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, present the trophy, United States Air Force Senior Airman Nicolette Stun Chu Lescu. Bring on up, grab the trophy. Let's make some noise. He's about to get it. Walk over as we celebrate his first Bass Pro Tour win, one of many. Let's hear it for the U.S. Air Force Stage 5, presented by Wick Filter champion, Drew Gill!
So a massive congratulations to Drew from the whole Tackle Talk family here. We had Drew on a few months back, and the feedback from that show was tremendous. And I think a lot of you really latched on to Drew as well after that episode. So if you go back and listen to it, you're going to hear just how analytical, how calculated, how efficient Drew tries to be with his craft out there on the water. And it's clearly leading to some immense success for him this year on the Bass Pro Tour. So hearing him break down like his cast to bite percentages and how to make improvements to make more casts in the right high percentage areas and how he looks at like his bite to landing ratios. He's taking that analytical approach to something that we don't normally associate with like a 4D chess approach, which is bass fishing. Bass fishing is traditionally a lot more on like instinct, more about feel and intuition. And Drew is one of those newer, younger, up and coming anglers that's flipping that upside down, along with some of the veterans too. They're getting on board as well to say, no, we can look at this as more of a science than an art sometimes. So there are obviously aspects of both a science and an art in bass fishing, but there are cut and dry things that you can do to improve your results on the water, and we're seeing that time and time again from these younger guys. So the rest of the leaderboard too in your top 10 was no surprise. We've mentioned it. We've talked to a lot of these guys on the show in the past year or two. We've talked to people like Matt Becker, Alton Jones Jr., Wheeler, Ott, of course, Drew, those guys that we've said it time and time again. It just seems like top 10 machines on the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour. Not a whole lot of surprises. Michael Neal is another one that you're never surprised to see in that top 10. So overall, a huge congratulations to Drew. It couldn't happen to a better guy. He walks away with $100,000 and a massive trophy to add to the trophy shelf back home, and I have a feeling it's probably not going to be his last. All right, everybody, now it's time to get into the main portion of our episode here, and we are lucky enough to be joined by Bassmaster Elite Series rookie Kyle Patrick. Now, I think we mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation here, but one of the main reasons that I reached out to Kyle and I wanted to chat with him is because everything has been so darn negative in the fishing world over the past couple months, especially on the pro side. And I mean, when I reached out to Kyle to initially book this episode, we were in the dead middle of like all of that gray area talk and the negative clickbaity podcast episode that came out from someone else, stirring up a lot of talk about the rookie class as a whole. And then there were a lot of rookie guys that had to respond, all that negativity out there in the air. And then there was another angler who ran a no wake zone and another angler that was a veteran that turned him in, and all the drama around that situation, and on and on and on. And it just gets nauseating. But amid all that, there are some hilarious, funny, really lighthearted moments and clips that are circulating around the internet, and at the heart of a lot of them is Kyle Patrick, a rookie on the Elite Series that just seems to be having a good time, seems to be a pleasant mix of like genuine, funny personality, but also a serious competitor. So Kyle is a guy that is clearly a hammer out there and living the dream while still being able to joke and keep things light. So that's what we're going to do today. We have Kyle on to talk about a mix of things, everything from funny to serious. We have a mix of entertaining and educational, everything from an in-depth breakdown of his 3 go-to lures that he seems to throw like 99% of the time, to learning more about this barefoot, Sour Patch Kid loving, overboard falling, fruit bat resembling angler. So buckle up, enjoy our conversation with the one and only Kyle Patrick. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined today by a Bassmaster Opens champion, a Bassmaster Classic qualifier, rookie on the Elite Series this year, Kyle Patrick. Kyle, thanks for stopping by today, man.
Yeah, man. Great to be on. I watch you guys time and time again, just like tune in, and you guys have a great show. So it's cool to be on.
I appreciate it. Well, obviously, first off, I am going to probably compliment you a little bit here because as we watch the Elite Series, I think as fans, like just as bass fishing fans, there's certain people that people are just kind of drawn to over the years. Like as you get the chance to watch these guys and get to know them a little bit better. I mean, you've got like tiers of people. So I'd say you've got like G-Man and Matt Robertson. They're basically like stand-up comedians, and that's why people fall in love with them. You've got, you know, the Scott Martins, the Bens, the BPs of the world that are just like YouTube sort of like, they have that following. People fall in love with them there. And then you have these guys that just seem to have this personality that really draws people in. When I think of that, I think of like Matty Wong, Carl Jochimson, like those type of guys where you see them, you talk to them, you just can't help but like the guys. So I think if I had to peg you, I think you're like a nice blend of all three of those. I think people really latch onto you because you do have this kind of like genuine personality to you. You're great on the internet that we'll get to in a little bit for, you know, making things a little bit more lighthearted and your online presence. And then just sort of a lighthearted, funny dude that can also go out and smash fish. So there's like my, I guess, 5-star Yelp review of Kyle Patrick.
Well, thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Yeah, I try to, you know, in any sport, when you hyper focus on it, there's a lot of negativity. I think especially now in the fishing industry, there's a whole lot of negativity, a lot of changes happening, you know, whether it's live scope or gray area, there's all that. So I try to take a lighthearted approach, especially to social media, because social media like kind of draws negativity in that sense. So yeah, and I'm just super passionate about the sport. But also the industry, like a lot of the back end stuff, you know, companies and trying to understand like the future of the sport. So, you know, I just try to learn, and I learn from everyone and try to, you know, have lighthearted content on social media. So I appreciate that because my goal is to I need to have a little bit of a filter. And there are times where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have said that because it gets exposed. But like, it's just because I'm so passionate. Sometimes I forget to have a filter, but I try to be open and honest with my personality and with everything else I do. I think people appreciate that. I hope they do. You know, some people may not like my energy as much because it's kind of like a little bit overbearing at times, but you got to be yourself.
Well, and there's a thing too, like say what you want about some people that have been a little bit, you know, more overzealous in their fishing career, I think, and been a little bit more animated. Some of those people you can tell are sort of putting on a show and they're playing a character a little bit. They're, you know, playing up certain things. Yours is genuine. Yours is just like a dude that loves to go out and loves to fish and doesn't really, you know, you talk like you're talking to your buddies when you're talking to the camera, or stuff that slips out. Like it's stuff that's hilarious because it's stuff that literally me or my buddy on the boat would say to each other, you know, if there wasn't a camera rolling. So I will say that, like, I think there is a big difference. People can tell that what you're doing and your personality is like, it's just who you are, dude. You're not really out there trying to put on a show for a camera.
100%. And I think the other side of it is like, when you're in the moment and you're catching them really well, you know, it's easy, not easy, but like, you know, I'm super excited and happy. And so I show that, but then, you know, there's the other side of, you know, professional fishing where like, I'm like, gosh, I need a little bit of a break from the travel and all that. So like this past couple of weeks, you know, I've just been kind of relaxing with my girlfriend and my family and just, you know, taking it easy a little bit. Cause it can burn you out, right? Like traveling constantly and putting hours and hours and hours on my Yamaha, like but you know, I think a fine balance is important, but again, this is a professional sport and you have to put in the time and dedication. But I just wanted to make that clear. Like, it's not all roses and peaches when you know what I mean? But I try to, you know, I'm excited about it and, you know, I love what I do. And I just love, you know, being able to fish for a living. It's the dream.
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head, you know, a few minutes ago too, that like right now the fishing world and online especially sucks. Like everything sucks. Everybody's negative. Everybody is, it's all drama and clickbait and rumor mills and, like you said, gray areas and this and that. And it's just so-and-so's cheating. So-and-so's not playing by the rules. Here's the drama that happened today at the boat ramp. And it's like, sometimes you just want to take a step back and be like, one, I wonder if every sport has this in it. We're just so dialed into fishing that we're,
right,
dialed into this side of things. I'm sure any other sport, anything that you could be in, freaking professional poker probably has drama that's going on in between people. But we've seemed, at least the past year or so, it's ticked up. I don't know if the visibility of it is more because now everything's online, everything's recorded. We kind of do zero in on a little bit of that. But I wanted to have an episode today. One of the reasons I really wanted to have you on was because you are such a fun dude out there on tour. I think it's nice just to break things up and be like, there's great things happening in fishing. There's stuff to, talk about that's positive and your experiences out there, year one and all the things that maybe we don't get to see a whole lot in terms of these like moments that you see. Like, for instance, I was watching something not too long ago and you guys were all in one of the locks somewhere, I think down in, Florida, and you guys are passing around like Sour Patch Kids and having a great time in the lock and stuff like that. That's the stuff that we don't get to see, that it would be nice to kind of break up this, rut that we're in fishing and talk about a little bit more of the fun stuff.
100%. I totally agree. I think just on your point quickly before we get into all that fun stuff, like I think that there is this type of stuff in all sports. I was just, what's that golf, the Netflix documentary on?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I saw it the other day. Full Swing. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I binge watched it because I was like, golf is so similar to fishing, other than the fact that they make a real living when they do well. I should say do well. When they cash checks, they make a lot of money. But there, you see drama, man. It's just, if you're in a professional sport, you are one of the most competitive people alive, because in order to get there, competition is what drives you. Some people have a little bit more of that, like, I guess, like angry competitive edge than others, but we're all just as competitive across the board. And so that's going to bring out some negativity or fighting or whatever it is. But yeah, I think it's heightened right now a little bit, which is unfortunate, but I just wanted to say that I don't think it's just fishing.
Yeah.
I think that social media definitely brings that to light, but that's why I pass around Sour Patch Kids, because I want everyone to just be friendly and have a good time, man. It was funny. That was a funny, that was a funny moment in the locks. Like everyone wanted them. So I was like throwing them. Like Matt Robertson was like, man, pass me one of those Sour Patch Kids. And I was like, throwing it to him. It's a good time, man. It's cool. There's cool moments for sure.
So some of those cool moments I definitely want to get to here in a little bit. So I guess we'll start. I'm going to start with a really hard-hitting question here with you. Something that I think has been burning on a lot of our minds since the past couple months here. And that is, what is this photo?
That was at the Bassmaster Classic, and I forget who took that photo. And how did that guy get his hands on it? Whoever runs that meme page, he honestly doesn't miss because they're funny. But I think so. Someone had said,
I do think I know where it came from, by the way, because I think the person that sent it to me is, I think probably the origin of it.
Wow. Well, I don't remember that because there was so much to take in at the Classic, but that is Sour Patch Kids in between my toes. And I think it started with that I fish barefoot and I like Sour Patch Kids. And then it just seemed like the right thing to do. And then I ate them afterwards too.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me either. Okay, so here's the weird thing. So you do get this like barefoot story and this aura around you. Like, it's the barefoot kid, right? This kid doesn't wear shoes. When did that start? Like, is it something where it's just blown out of proportion? Like, yeah, I don't wear shoes on a boat because I hate wearing shoes on a boat too. I'm barefoot on my boat or on my kayak all the time.
100%. I've never, like, okay, so when it's below a certain temperature, I will wear shoes. But for me, it's simply a comfort factor. Like, I like being able to control the trolling motor. It comes down to just simply my comfort and what I'm used to doing. It's actually starting to take a toll on me. Like, my feet hurt when I get off the water because I don't have much support other than my, carpet padding on the Phoenix. But it literally, I feel like I can control my trolling motor better. If I want to just touch it just barely, like your shoes, it just feels clunky to me. And then when I'm, that shoe adds like an extra little bit. Like if I'm a size 11, like my foot, it adds like an inch, and I want to be nimble. Even though I fell in, like I still want to be nimble on the water. And like, I just feel like I have more control of what I'm doing when I'm barefoot. It's just more comfortable. I've literally been doing it since I started fishing tournaments. Literally the first tournament I ever fished was out of a blue canoe, and I had no shoes on. And now I'm on the Elite Series and still don't wear shoes. I do wear them on the stage now because there was an issue around some things. So I need to wear shoes, but I used to go up on the open stage without shoes on because it was just like the natural progression. I get out of my boat, bag my fish, walk up the stage. Maybe it's a grounding thing. I don't know. I'm just comfortable. You know,
it's not that weird in all the situations. Like you said, that you're not going to Walmart, Bilbo Baggins over here, going to Kroger or something, right? You're 100%. Wearing shoes.
Right. I just am more comfortable. That's what it comes down to,
When I first saw that and them making a big deal about that, I was like, that's so odd. Because I like I said, on a boat, no one wants to wear shoes. Now, has it backfired on you? Have you got like trebles in the foot or anything?
No, that's the other thing.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, like I keep my rods organized, and I also know at all times, like if I put a rod behind me, I always remember that there's a rod behind me, and I like step around it. But with shoes, I feel like I would be kicking rods around, like I wouldn't have as much control. But
yeah, you're more careless because you don't have to be. Yeah,
exactly.
So the organization thing, have you always been an organized person? Because I think that's probably hands down my biggest weakness as an angler. Like if you look at my kayak, you look at my garage, my truck, or whatever, it looks like a tornado went off in a tackle store.
So I'll have I am organized when it comes to fishing because you have to be when you do it for a living. Because like the last thing that I need is to have, I don't know, like if I use a Nico hook, a specific Nico hook, like a 1/0 Nico hook or a number 1, that's the one I use for my Senko. I got a lot of questions about that after that Lake Fork event. But like I can't run out of those. So I need to always know where I stand on all my tackle. But as the event progresses, I tend to like get a little unorganized. And then after the event's over, I have like multiple boxes in the back of my truck, like boxes of just lures that are all just pile up, that after the tournament, I'm like, I don't feel like organizing these. I'm just done. And I just throw them in there. So they'll be like, I'll have like 2 or 3 months go by. And then like, I'll be like, oh my gosh, dude, I ordered something online and I realized that I have like 20 packages already. So that's my sign to then like go and like spend a day and just go through all my tackle. But
see, that makes me feel a little better.
For all intents and purposes, though, I am somewhat organized because I have to be, and I like it. Like I like to have my stuff in order to where I know where it is at all times.
Yeah, like I'll come back after a hard day of fishing and like I'll organize my stuff before I go out the next time. Like I'm really good at that, but I do not have the discipline while I'm in the boat, while I'm in the kayak, whatever, to keep it organized while I'm on the water. I take something out, it gets thrown in the pile, like you said, and then that pile just grows 100%. All day long to the point where when I get home, like, all right, well now it's time to deal with the pile.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an efficiency thing. Like I'm not going to sit in my boat. Like we only get 3 days of practice on the Elite Series and, hopefully 4 days of competition. And, I'm not going to sit there and organize when I have, graphing or needing to find bed fish or whatever it is. Like everything's about efficiency for me when I'm on the water, and I hyper focus on exactly what I need to be doing, which is finding fish or catching fish, and like nothing else matters. So that's part of the unorganized. But although, after the tournament, when I get home, I probably could be a little more organized.
Yeah. You're no Brian Thrift.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Well, good. You also mentioned, we skimmed past it, but I don't think we can. You said, and maybe this would be something if you were wearing shoes, maybe if you had a little bit more traction, maybe this wouldn't have happened, but you did take a nice little dip in the water on Bass Live not too long ago. And
yeah, that's a rarity, by the way.
You've never done that before? That was the first time you fell in?
I've never done that, and I'll tell you why. That tournament, I literally only caught fish when they were schooling. Like I stood on the front deck. I mean, I have a compilation of videos here of literally, I would sit there, I would stand there. This is unseen footage. I'll show it to you. I'm just standing. I stand on the front of my boat. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see it?
Yeah.
This is dock, so it's different.
Yep.
But you'll see. In 1 second, I'm literally standing at the front of the boat in this next clip. and I see the fish schooling and I fire out.
Yep.
And I would not make a cast unless they were schooling. Like, you can see, this is a pretty cool, I'll post it on my Instagram, but the fish were, if people haven't fished Murray and they don't know if they're from the north or whatever, like that rarely happens, where like across the lake, if you find a specific area, the fish are busting. Anyway, long story short, because I'm antsy, right? Like, I am high energy. So if I can't be casting and focusing on what I'm doing, like I tend to be moving. It's like same thing at school when, you tap your foot for it. Yeah. And so I'm like adjusting my stance constantly, and I adjusted my stance. And from when I put the trolling motor up, there was water. So my foot slipped, and and unfortunately it happened to be next to Lee, and he got a kick out of it. But yeah.
Well, from us watching at home, it's like you're watching it and you just see, and I've rewound it too. It's like you just see what was probably your left leg kick out and then just splash. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. You're sitting there, you watch like, what is he trying to do? I didn't know if you were trying to like stand up and get on that little trolling motor mount right there or whatever. But I'll give
you the video real quick right here. I'll zoom in on it so you can see. Watch my foot. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to make an adjustment.
Oh.
See what I'm saying?
That makes a little bit more sense.
So the adjustment, I slipped, and then my weight was out of the boat, and now it's the fruit bat, I guess.
And of course, the live camera is on you while it happens. Like, it has to be.
One of my buddies texted me, said, "Please tell me you did that on purpose." Like, it would have been you would have been a genius. I was like, dude, no, I didn't do it on purpose. He was like, well, you're getting good press from it. So I guess I was like, yeah, you're right.
So who did it better, you or Pete Glusick?
Oh, dude, Pete's was way better. The trolling motor snap with the rollover flip into the water, unbelievable.
The only thing about Pete's was you watched it, and like yours was funny immediately. Like, the second it happens, it's hilarious. Where with Pete's, there was like 2 or 3 seconds where you're worried for a second.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
Like, I hope he's okay. Like that didn't look good. I hope he gets up and is all right. Pete's not 22 years old, right? Pete's had some years on him, so it's like, no. And then as soon as he pops up, it's like, okay, now it's okay to laugh. But yours was like funny the second it happened.
I wish I was 22, bro. I'm starting to hurt. Like, already my shoulders starting to hurt and stuff. But
you're closer to 22 than Pete is.
Correct.
Well, and then obviously you mentioned Mark Zona says 2 words that will probably live with you for the rest of your fishing career, likened you to a fruit bat, which might be the most random association I've ever heard in my life. I don't even know what a fruit bat is.
Dude, that's what I love so much about Zona, is like, he's so on the money with like his commentating. Honestly, that was my favorite part, is Zona commentating on it. It was awesome.
So are we ready to like embrace fruit bat, or is it one of those things that was like totally for a week, like, okay, it was funny, now can I please not hear that anymore?
I mean, if they bring it up again, it's not a big deal. I mean, I made some funny memes about it, but no, I mean, look, I'm not easily insulted. There's only a few things that like bother me, and like people can go to town on it. I'm not worried. I don't care.
Well, and then you said obviously the online stuff. So I do want to tip my hat to you, because I think I even commented a couple weeks ago. It's like, I really enjoy that we're getting to a point where there are young anglers making their way into pro fishing that understand what the internet, what, social media, what Instagram, what YouTube should be about, like all of that kind of stuff, where you've got these people that grew up with the internet and they know what they should be using it for. Yes, there's going to be time where you're going to need to do your sponsor plugs and, your videos and your tournament results and stuff like that. But you need to break it up with something that is just enjoyable and makes people want to follow you. And you do that really well. So I don't know who you've got on, your payroll that's doing your Instagrams and stuff, because it's great. I'm assuming you can't have enough time to do all of that yourself.
No. I have help 100%.
Yeah. But it's awesome. It's clever. It's, tongue in cheek, the fruit bat thing, right? I like that you joke about yourself too. Like, obviously your Bassmaster photo looks like you're on, 12 Adderall and your eyes are the size of baseballs, and you accentuate it in that video. It's like, okay, let's lean into it.
They have to get there. They have to figure out a better way to take pictures, because the flash goes off, and the way that, for me, like, I'm always like, oh my gosh. And then the picture, and then they use that picture. And I was like, guys, like, I don't always look like I'm on crack cocaine when you take a picture of me. Like, Like, give me a few shots here. Gosh.
Rapid burst or something and just pick the most normal one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I do think you do a good job on social media. They're my favorite. You've got reoccurring segments that people seem to fall in love with. The old, what is it? The Bud Light commercials that used to do the Real Men of Genius. Yeah, all that stuff is top tier great. So I do have a question on that. Is that AI voice, or do you have like the dude that did the commercials on speed dial? Because the inflection is so good. I don't know how computers are doing this nowadays.
AI is an incredible thing, man. If you learn how to use it, it can be really useful. That's all. I mean, I don't want to give away.
It's crazy. Well, yeah, no, I don't. But it's nuts. It's like the way he says the sentence sounds like you have a voiceover person doing it. It's not just like a text to speech type feel to it.
Dude, it's amazing. You know how many people have like stolen the voices that I've made?
Oh yeah.
And then put it on, like, it's everywhere, dude. It's incredible, actually. Honestly, it's pretty amazing. And that's one cool thing about technology, is that, there's tons of new things happening. We're learning about new ways to do things, not relating this to live scope, but I'm just saying, it's cool. It really is.
You even take I like the tournament results stuff where it's just like out of context things that you say on the boat. I mean, if you've got 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days of raw footage, like the things that you're going to hear somebody say, if you just clip it out of context, are worth the price of admission, even more so sometimes than just watching an actual tournament results video.
I know. There was one that was posted that got a lot of views that I was like, oh man, I wish I didn't put that in my YouTube, but it is what it is. It wasn't anything too vulgar, really.
No.
Yeah.
It's just goofy stuff. Dudes exactly. Being dudes.
Yeah. 100%.
All right, everybody, we'll get back to the episode here in just a second, but first we are brought to you in part by Mossy Oak. And there's a reason that you're going to see some of the best anglers on the planet wearing Mossy Oak fishing apparel. I'm talking Kevin Van Dam, Hank Parker, Ott Defoe, Greg Hackney, Brandon Polinick, Gerald Swindle, Jordan Lee. All those guys wear Mossy Oak. That's because while it's true that Mossy Oak makes some of the best hunting apparel on the planet, they also have an incredible fishing apparel line designed for those tough days on the water. And we're getting to that time of year where the sun is going to be a real concern. I've had days where I've been out on the water for like 12 hours straight. I feel fine, and then I come home and I look like a lobster because I didn't take care of my skin all day. Don't be that person. Dress for the elements. Trust me, you'll thank me later. That's why you should check out Mossy Oak Fishing's tech shirts. They're lightweight, they're breathable, and they still protect you from the sun and reduce sweat. With options from short sleeve to long sleeve tech hoodies, and more, they're exactly what you need to stay comfortable and protected out there on the water and look good doing it. So head over to www.store.mossyoak.com and click fishing at the top of the page. Again, that's www.store.mossyoak.com. So I do want to ask you a little bit. We touched on it a few minutes ago. There are these moments when you're out there. You've had, I don't know how many tournaments you guys have had this year so far. A handful, obviously. So I think you got four left, right? 2 Southern, 2 Northern. So of those tournaments you've been a part of so far, are there any of these moments that you look back on really fondly, like in the locks, or like things that just we as fans don't get to see, where you could say, you know what, there's a lot of really cool moments that happen on tour. There's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of things that, as we get so down and we watch these guys, for clickbait, stir up all the negativity. It's like, there's some really funny, cool moments. If you guys would get to see those too, you'd realize that those outweigh all of the negative.
Totally, man. There's so much positive. Whether it's having a good conversation with Gerald and he's making me laugh, like all these guys that I've looked up to for my whole life, like just even little moments in the weigh-in line or at blast off, there's some really funny, just moments that that no one will ever see. Like you said, like no one will ever see the moments unless they're, I post them on my YouTube or somehow they get out somehow. But there is so much good vibes, 90% of the time. And the other 10% gets blown up. Maybe for good reason, maybe not. Maybe we do need to make some changes. But regardless, ask any of the marshals I've been with. It's a good time, man. For me, 99.9% of the time is a good time. Other than when I'm by myself in my truck at 4 a.m. in the morning and just have to drive another 20 hours. Not so much a good time, but a lot of it's really fun. like I said, there are negatives, but like there's so much that people don't see that is really positive and funny, like the Sour Patch Kids and the locks, passing it around to everyone. Just good conversations about, fishing and learning about the industry, and having, sponsors there, and the classic, unbelievable, like meeting, all the sponsors that support me. Some of them I haven't met before, right? Like new ones that, I run into and we have good conversations. I was chatting with Bob Cobb. We had a whiskey together at the classic, like, yeah, stuff like that. It's just like, wow, this is, almost out of body experience, because I've been so obsessed with the sport since I was a kid that, when KVD you're having a drink with KVD and he's like, really good finish this week in the classic. Like you'll do it, it's hard to win your first one. I'm like, oh my God, like that kind of stuff is stuff that people don't really get to see or hear about. And like, there's so much positivity that it eventually things will, quiet down and it'll be all good. But again, like it's blown out of proportion, the negativity. You are right.
So this is a loaded question. After, a little over half of your first year on the Elite Series, is it everything that you wanted it to be?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the sense that there's two ways to answer that. One, yeah, like it's amazing. Dave Mercer's amazing. Bassmaster's amazing. They make it a really great experience. On the other hand, transitioning to, because I worked when I fished the opens, because I had to pay for the opens. Like I had really good sponsor support throughout, but like that's not enough if you want to rent or have a mortgage and like do everything outside of fishing that a normal person does. But now that I've transitioned to full time, sometimes it can feel more like work. Like people, when you have a dream and you're like looking at, okay, I want to be a professional bass fisherman, I want to make the elites. You don't really think about like, okay, but that's going to be your job now. Like it's not like, oh, I'm reading Bassmaster magazine or I'm watching a 45-minute Elite Series show on YouTube, right? Like this is a job, and there are downsides to any job. It doesn't matter if it's the best job in the world. Like you're going to have times when you get down, or I didn't make the cut at St. John's. I finished 70th. Like, I got down a little bit, like, and you have a long drive home. You don't make any money. There's a lot of situations and times that you don't think about when it's your dream, because when you're dreaming about something, like you're not thinking, oh, but there's going to be so much, there's going to be times where it sucks. Like you don't really think that way, but once you're living it, sometimes you get kicked back into reality in situations where you're like, it's not all peaches and roses, right? Like there are problems in anything. And I think the problems come to light more because I'm involved with everything that goes on at Bassmaster, to the point where like I can see certain things where I'm like, that's not, how I wanted it to be, or stuff like that. But from a perspective of like me as a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old or whatever, looking at me now, it is everything that I thought it would be then. Long answer to the question, but that's the real.
Have you learned a lot in the past, 6, 7, 8, 9 months compared to, the years and years before of working your way up to? Like, are there things that you just learn because of sink or swim, or because of the quality of angler that you're around at these Elite Series events, that you just, no matter how much time you put in at the Toyotas or the Opens or whatever, like you're not going to get that experience?
Yeah, I mean, as far as on the water, you're saying?
Yeah, like, that's helped you be a better angler. Do you think that this is, obviously there's the challenge of, more stiff competition, but you're also around, hundreds of the best anglers on the planet, where you're surrounded by them. And I'm sure that a lot of that starts to rub off on you, and you pick up things more so than hanging out with, not to say there's anything wrong with it, but, like more local derbs or opens or things like that.
No, I mean, I'm learning, dude, the amount I'm learning every tournament is like astronomical. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I work really closely with Wesley Gore. He's from Alabama. So he teaches me more than I have. Him alone this year, he's taught me more about fishing in the South than I've probably known ever. Right. So like even that alone, and then you're out there and Brandon Polinick's talking to you about, Brandon was talking with me in the lock about a hook to use instead of a different hook, like tiny little details that you just wouldn't really know otherwise. So, I mean, I've learned, and that's one thing that I think I do well is like, even if it is a local guy that, doesn't do that well, like if he has a little trick that he wants to explain to me, I'm learning from him. I don't have any like, oh, like I can't learn from this guy, because fishing, you can learn from everyone. So like I'm always soaking in as much knowledge as I can from everyone. And I think that's part of the reason I've gotten here is because I've been able to absorb information and apply it relatively quickly. And I got to tell you, the opens, like those prepare you so well for the Elite Series. Like that's one thing I will give Bass credit for. It may not be great payouts. You may have to work another job to do it, but like you will be ready. If you make the Elites through the opens, you're going to be ready. I think going to 9 guys making the Elites was the best decision they've made in a long time. Because, in order to make the Elites, you're going to have to, go through all types of tournament fisheries, continue to learn throughout. And, so as far as being prepared, I was definitely prepared, but I'm learning like so much every tournament, every day, really. But when it comes to a tournament situation, I am like, it's crazy. I can't even describe how much I'm learning.
It's always a weird caveat with fishing too, where it's like, with other sports, there's not that much information sharing to try and help your competitors, where with fishing, it seems like everybody, for the most part, right? You obviously have your, tips and things like that, but people are there and they want to try and help other people. Like you see it in tournaments, people let you come in and, catch your limit and get out and stuff like that. There's all of that sort of thing that happens where you're not going to see Steph Curry in the gym with, Dame helping him with his jump shot, right? Like that doesn't really happen. But with fishing, you are sitting in the lock and BP saying, hey, you should try this. Like that is always a really cool kind of caveat to our sport versus others.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, when it comes to like on the water situations, like I can't see a person on the Elite Series that if they pulled up to me and were like, hey man, you mind if I start where you're at and go behind you? Like, absolutely. Like I will share pretty much anything with anyone until they prove that they don't deserve that. So like, I want everyone to succeed. That's why I think, we need to figure out something to make this experience better for everyone. Cause I think it can get a lot better, but even right now, I think it's great. I think, there's a lot to learn from this year, and it's great out there. It really is. I enjoy it a ton.
So you also mentioned a few minutes ago the Bassmaster Classic this year. So I went to the Classic this year. This is the second Classic I've ever been to, and this was obviously your first Classic as a competitor. Yep. And I'm assuming it's got to be something you dreamed of since, you were a kid. Gosh. Like you said, since the Blue Canoe days. Like, it's got to be just the ultimate goal. And you had a great finish, 7th place, a top 10 finish at Grand Lake. It was awesome. So standing in that arena, as I was sitting there and we were doing a little bit of like media stuff, like you can hear even in your voice, like, there's a difference in holding the microphone up and talking on stage at the Bassmaster Classic versus, stop 1 or stop 2 or stop 3 on the Elite Series. There's a little shake in your voice and everybody's voice, right? There's a little bit of that where you can just, it's cool to sit back and watch and be like, this moment, 1, is not lost on these guys. And 2, like, it is everything that it's hyped up to be. It is just the most pressure ever. So what was the experience like for you at your first Bassmaster Classic compared to what you expected it to be versus what it ended up being?
Yeah. I mean, I had that question a lot. Like it was better than I thought it would be. Like it was so, they do a really good job with it. Even driving an hour and a half to the lake, like I didn't care. It was the Bassmaster Classic, like everything from media to the layout when they bring you in on your boat. Like I had to almost, believe it or not, I had to almost take it in. I almost couldn't take it all in. I have to like dulled down my emotions, because if I had taken it all in the way that I wanted to, I don't think I would have been able to talk on stage. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I actually don't think I appreciated as much as I wanted to, because I knew that I had an obligation to my family, friends, fans, sponsors to like hold myself in a normal way up there, because like it's such a crazy thing to be on that stage after thinking about it for so long, because it's just surreal. Like it felt surreal to me the whole time. Now, when I was on the water, it was like I was in an NA tournament. But the minute I got to the arena and like, all that was just like a crazy, crazy experience. I want to make it back so badly, because the second time I feel like I'll appreciate it a little more almost, because it won't be so like, because for me, it was like made the elites, fished for 4 weeks, and then I'm in the classic. Like, it was so fast that I couldn't quite appreciate it as much as I wanted to.
Yeah, like I said, they do it right. The production of everything. I guess that's a good point from your end. You're out there fishing a normal tournament, but then when you come in for weigh-in, you're not on a stage in front of a couple hundred people. It's, oh my gosh, I'm at an arena and I'm pulling into my boat and there's loud music and LED screens behind me with my face that's 4 stories tall. Yeah. And it's just like an arena of people that are there to watch you walk across a stage and walk back across the stage. Yeah. And that's why they stood in line for hours and they drove hours to come watch you talk for 15 seconds, hold up a fish for 10 seconds and walk out. And like it is the craziest thing. I went to my first one last year and you hear all the stories and everything. And I'll like never miss another one, because you walk in, you're like, oh, I get it now.
It was nuts, man.
So then the only thing I wanted to ask you too, and this is a little bit of like a Debbie Downer, but I'm curious. So you missed the Super 6 by like 2 ounces. So the Super 6, is that as big a deal to you guys as it is to us, the fans?
I mean, yeah, was I bummed that I wasn't at the press conference and in the Super 6 deal? Yeah, but at the same time, you got to think, like, it's my first classic and I just top 10'd it. So I'm just ecstatic to be there and ecstatic to have the press that I had. And I was more upset that I made the top 10 and only got like 2 hours of coverage on FS1.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a camera guy in my boat. I was upset about. Making the Super 6, it is what it is. Like, I didn't catch enough weight. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's pretty cut and dry. Like, you got to catch them better. But definitely felt like at the Classic, Bassmaster should have had more. I feel like they should have more cameras, because there's so many storylines. Like, even at the last time they were at Grand Lake, I think it was the last time when Edwin Evers came from 25th to the win, they had to drive there and put a camera in his boat. I think they should have a camera in the entire top 25's boat, because 25th place can come back and win, especially on a place like Grand Lake where 14 pounds is a good bag, but you could also catch 28 pounds because it leaves so much room to come back and win a tournament. And so for me, that's where I was a little bit more upset. Super 6, I didn't catch them as good as I should have.
See, that's interesting, because like Super 6 is my favorite part of the whole darn thing.
Right,
like, you go in, you get the chills. Is more
for the fan. I think it's more for the fan.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I obviously it's cool to have the footage of the Super 6 coming out and have you in it, and that's good publicity. But yeah, I was more bummed about the top 10 not having a camera, because all my buddies were there. They were trying to watch and everything. You know what I mean?
Well, even if like you said, put it in the top 25. Now I know there's costs and all that kind of stuff. So I understand there's things behind.
Dude, there's costs, but it's the Bassmaster Classic. They're going to be okay if they spend an extra $50,000 to put cameras in their boats. Like I don't understand. That almost has to change like next year.
Well, because even if you get a good storyline out of one of those guys it doesn't get up to top 10 or top 5 or whatever, but that storyline can be told in a completely separate form of media down the road. Like, package it up and tell the story of the guy jumping from, 50 or whatever it is, 38th place to 14th place and his crazy day on the water. Like, all of that is because it's the Bassmaster Classic. We will still watch it 5-10 years down the road, even if it wasn't like something that ended up being, okay, this person actually ended up winning.
Yeah, 100%. So that's definitely something they need to do, in my opinion.
All right, everybody, we'll get back to the episode here in just a second, but first we are brought to you in part by Dakota Lithium Batteries. And boys and girls, there are just certain things that you want to take out of the equation when you're on the water. Things that you don't want to have to worry about. They should just work when they're needed and never let you down. Things you just want to buy and never have to think about again, like a life jacket or a net. Well, I would argue that one of the most important items that falls into that category is your battery. And I can confidently say that after years of running Dakota Lithium batteries, that's exactly what they do. They work when you need them to every single time. And they're just one of those things that you make the right purchase the first time, and then you don't have to worry about it seemingly ever again, and you can focus on what you should be focused on, which is fishing. So if you want your own Dakota Lithium batteries, all you have to do is go to www.dakotalithium.com, and even better, you don't have to pay full retail price. That's because you're smart, you listen to Tackle Talk, and we're here to save you money. The boys at Dakota Lithium have gave us the code TACKLETALK10. Tackle Talk 10 saves you 10% off your entire battery purchase every single time. Again, that's code Tackle Talk 10 over at www.dakotalithium.com, the official lithium battery of Bassmaster. So the other thing I want to ask you about here, and obviously this is Tackle Talk. We love to talk, nitty gritty tackle stuff. And I know I warned you before we came on. This was a road I want to go down. This is a quote, and I think it was when you were on with Bailey, maybe like 6 months to a year ago. Bailey at Serious Angler, Bailey and 80, they do a great show. Everybody go check them out. They're awesome dudes. But they had you on and you were talking and you basically said something along the lines of, dude, I made the Bassmaster Elite Series with 3 baits. And I genuinely don't think I caught a fish on any other bait, throughout my opens process, basically, or something like that. I know I'm paraphrasing. But yeah. I think that's a really cool road to go down because we're in a world where everybody's throwing a billion things at you tackle-wise, and everybody's coming out with their version of X and Y, and, iCast every year shoves 15,000 new things down our throats. Meanwhile, you made the Elite Series with 3 lures. So I've got them here. I don't want to spoil it, but I want to kind of give you the floor to talk about these 3, why they're special to you, and then we can kind of do a little bit of a deep dive on them. Yeah. So, year to year, it changes. Year 1 of the Opens, I finished 10th in AOY. That was before they took the top 9. And, I threw a chatterbait, I threw a jig, I threw a Senko drop shot, I threw a topwater frog a lot. But each year it changes. But this year's schedule and my confidence level in these 3 baits, it just lined up, right? So first and foremost, I won Ozarks on a jig. That's all I threw. I caught every fish on a jig. I think I caught a few on a buzzbait, but they didn't weigh. I'm talking about what I caught fish on other techniques, but majority of them, probably 99%, I weighed on 3 baits. Jig, and that's just a super versatile deal. It's the Greenfish Tackle little rubber jig with a Chunky D missile baits trailer. I think it's the perfect combination. 3/4 ounce. I talk about it all the time. You can dead stick that bait and bass will come over almost like it's live bait and eat it off the bottom because of the way that rubber moves. And then the Senko, which is a staple, and that's not a secret, but it's where you use it and it's how you use it. And then the drop shot, the power shot, and that's the Magic Worm by Missile Baits. Basically, if you think about it, they're 3 techniques, but they encompass the whole range of the water column, shallow water, sight fishing largemouth, not on beds, just cruising sight fishing largemouth. The Senko is so good. That's what I've used in New York to have success when I'm up real shallow because it just works. It just catches fish. Everyone knows that. So why wouldn't it work across the country? It does. Now, I didn't weigh a ton of fish on it. I think I probably weighed I weighed 4 fish at Wheeler on it, and I weighed 2 or 3 fish in other tournaments. I didn't weigh a ton of them, but they were important fish, really important. And then, that drop shot with the way the schedule's set up, whether it was deeper spawning fish that I was using forward facing sonar for, because I don't love to throw a jig at spawning largemouth when they're out deep, because I like to keep that bait just about 8 to 12 inches off the bottom.
And that worm, it's so lifelike. They partnered with RoboWorm to make it, and Missile and RoboWorm. And it's just a fish catcher. And they have a unique color that everyone should go check out. It's called Bruiser Flash. It's like a blue with a black bottom. It's like a weird, like people don't really think about, oh, I'm going to throw a blue worm. I think like pink, maybe like a natural brown. But that blue worm was so crucial. And I just don't think like bass see enough of that color of a worm. And everyone talks about a black and blue jig, but they never throw a worm in black and blue. And so that was a really crucial bait for me. And, those 3 baits, I was able to, scan a lot, find a lot of deep stuff, find really good shallow sections, and just basically stick with those 3 key baits. And yeah, it works, man. And that's one thing that the point of all that, and the reason I say that a lot, is what you just said. Like, people get really caught up in like these little tiny bait tweaks and this and that. And like, there is some merit to keeping it simple on the water. Like, you see it done look at John Cox, man. Like, he's the definition of keeping it simple. So just, if you're the type of guy that needs to deep dive and find all these little tiny little adjustments, and I throw this and I put some lead wire on it so it sinks faster, that's fine. If it works for you, it works for you. But don't try to expand to the point where you lose track of what you're good at on the water, because I think that's why a lot of people struggle in the opens, is they go try to do things that they're not necessarily good at or haven't practiced a lot. And when you don't have confidence to the level that you need to have confidence to do well in these tournaments with a certain bait, don't throw it, because it's not worth finishing 97th because you thought you were throwing the right bait, like, or someone told you that was the right bait to throw. Like, stick to what you're good at, do it well. You saw Tyler Williams do it, he only caught him on a jig. Like, so, I mean, yeah, it can hurt you. It can bite you. I mean, there's no doubt, like, that can bite you, but more times than not, you'll find success if you look for the right stuff and do it the right way.
I love that message. And it also comes back to what we talked about really early in the episode, which is efficiency. You were talking about that when, it's organizing your tackle, but it comes into play when you're talking about what you're throwing too, right? If you're sitting out there, you're telling me that you basically went through that year and you threw jig, worm, drop shot. And that takes so much time and so much second guessing and so much retying and modifying and all kinds of stuff in the boat. You're making more casts because I'm out here, I'm throwing jig, worm, drop shot. Like, that's what I feel confident in. That's what I'm going to spend more time actually trying to get the fish to bite and less time in my boat trying to figure out what they're going to bite. And I really like that.
Yeah. And like, the other deal is, like, everyone spends a ton of time like, oh, these are bass. What will they bite in this specific spot? And that's the thing with live scope. They're like, oh, they're bass. Like, keep trying to throw a bunch of different baits at them to see if they'll bite. Dude, go to biting fish. Go to biting. Like, I would stick a jig in my hand and just go to try to find areas where the fish were biting the jig. And I think that paid off a ton. And it's the same pretty much with any bait, but I feel like those 3 baits cover so much of the water column. Like, day 1 at Ozarks, I threw a jig. I caught them on like bluffs. Under like near docks, like literally bluff. Then day 2, I had to run to the back of a pocket, like 6 foot, and throw that jig. So like, you can cover so much water with those 3 different baits that, I mean, at Hartwell, I was catching them on a Senko 2 years ago. I finished 40th, which isn't like amazing, but a top 40 in an open's good. Like, or I think I'm 41st or something, but, I was catching them on a Senko in like 25. I had to wait for it to fall. So you can make things work. Now, don't force it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you can make it work with what you're confident in. It's really the thing is all it is about finding fish. The best anglers are good at finding fish, and then they catch them. Like, do you need the specific bait to do it? Probably not. They're going to bite. If you get it to the right depth and it's the right presentation, you found the fish. You just, I think finding fish is more important than like your bait choice and like figuring out like what specific little tweak you need.
Well, and like you said, find biting fish. That's something that we see, even creeks, rivers, stuff like that. I drive my friends crazy sometimes because we'll be going on a big kayak trip or something. There'll be the juiciest eddy in the world right off this, big current seam. There should be fish stacked there. I'll make 4 casts. If there's not a fish there, I'm moving on. Like, I'm not sitting there all day long and playing this game. Like, I'm going to make my move and find fish that are going to cooperate. Usually that alpha fish that's in there that is going to show itself is going to show itself in the first couple casts and move on. Yes, you might get lucky and you might stay there for an hour and you might coax one out, but in that hour, what could you have done? Right?
Yeah.
You could have gone and like you said, it's back to efficiency. The best anglers in the world are out there finding the fish that are going to cooperate, not dwelling over the fish that won't.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like that eddy you're talking about. I could have, there are times where I'll find a sweet spot like that and not catch anything. That doesn't mean I have to sit there for 4 hours of practice and figure out when they're going to bite. Like, I can mark that spot and come back later and make 10, 20 casts at it. Like, in order for people, you don't need to catch a fish in an area to have confidence in an area, as weird as that sounds. Like, you can find an area and be like, okay, this is pretty good. Why aren't they here? That's weird. I'll mark it. I mark those spots usually red, but I mark it. If I don't think a spot's good, I won't mark it. But if I find a spot in practice where I'm like, you know what, this is interesting, I need to maybe either check back on this in practice, or maybe if I have a really good day one and I've got a few hours left, I'll come back here and see if they're now here in the tournament. Now, I do that all the time. People, you have confidence that that fish will be there. You know what I'm saying? Everyone always needs to prove they're here right now and I'm going to catch them. It's almost worse when they're there that good in that specific day. Because if you have 3 days leading up to the tournament, odds are they might leave. So have confidence that you found a spot that will be good or is good at some point, and then maybe try to expand on it later.
Okay, so really quickly, talk to me about these 3 baits in particular. Let's start with the Missile Baits Magic Worm. So you're drop shotting this thing. The Magic Worm it's like what, 5-6 inches? Probably 6 inches. Yeah. That's a pretty long worm to be drop shotting too. Why do you make the choice to go with something longer, more slender, more sort of flowy than more of a short, stubby 2-3 inch bait?
Yeah, I think that the length is really important because it coaxes them into biting. They don't like. It's sort of why do you throw a glide bait in the situation instead of a jerk bait? Not the same, but somewhat of the same, because it's a bigger presentation. These bigger fish are hungry. A lot of the fish that I was catching on those worms were relating to a single piece of structure, whether they were spawning on it or just resting there. And throwing a small little bait, I've never been super fond of. The first time I ever even caught a fish and waded in at a Bassmaster event on a Demiki rig was at Toledo in the Elite Series. I don't like throwing small little baits. I throw it on a big, it's a 3-aught cover shot HD. So it's a thicker hook. It's a bigger hook. I set the hook like I'm setting it punching on that rod. 20 pound test. And the worm it's the perfect diameter and length to use somewhat of a bigger hook. And if you're targeting a 3+ pound largemouth, dude, a worm this long, they're that's child's play. I mean, they're eating a glide bait this long, So that's my reasoning behind that. A lot of control. I can use my live scope and control that bait and how it's falling and where it's falling. If it's 2 feet in front of it or 10 feet in front of it, if I think it's moving, I could use that a lot. And, when you dead stick it, if I would tap the rod, I'm imagining that worm under there. If it's on the bottom, it's kind of barely moving. And when I tap the rod, it moves the nose and then the rest of the bait kind of follows really slowly and nicely. So that's that one. I think that's a crucial point. That's a really good bait, really good.
What drop shot weights do you use?
I've been using the NACO, N-A-K-O. Their weights
the
are
little
really
tungsten ones.
Yeah. Yep. Them. Sometimes I'll use lead ones during practice. Well, that was in the opens when I was less financially comfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1/2 ounce weights pretty much. I would drop down to a 3/8 a lot. If I felt like it needed a little bit slower of a fall, but you're using heavy lines. So that kind of the 1/2 ounce isn't doing what a 1/2 ounce would do on 10 pound test. It's not falling that fast. When you're throwing 20 pounds, and that was straight fluoro on a bait caster. So I wanted to have the control of making a long cast with a bait caster So the half ounce was like a go-to. When I would use a spinning rod, I would use a robo worm and throw a 1/4 ounce, maybe a 3/8. But yeah, and then I would just keep the leader like 8 to 12 inches.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, right? I know you mentioned it earlier, but this is power shotting. This is not like,
correct.
St. Lawrence River, dainty drop shot type stuff, right? You're actually, like you said, with casting gear out there walloping on fish on this. So yeah, very cool. And then the second one, you mentioned your jig of choice. So you're a greenfish tackle guy, obviously. Talk to me a little bit about the greenfish tackle jig, because I'll be honest, I've never used a greenfish tackle jig, but every time you talk to somebody that uses them, it's one of those guys that you pay attention to, where it's like the people that know and the people that throw greenfish seem to be the guys where it's like, all right, they're hammers, right? Like they kind of know what they're doing. There's probably some merit to these things. I know they really take pride on the skirts. I know the skirts look great. I also think the heads are really unique. I like the head too. So I'll let you talk about them a little bit, but what is it about those greenfish jigs that you like so much?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they're hand tied. The guys over at Greenfish do a phenomenal job, like truly. And, that's why Missile partnered with them to use their skirt to make that custom jig for the Classic. Like both of those companies care a lot about the product they're putting out. It's not just a sell as many baits as we can type deal. So first of all, it's the people behind the company. And for me, that's a big deal because, I want people that believe in their product. And also the skirt, they use their rubber skirt's proprietary, the way they incorporate it in the jig. And when you look at that skirt, like if you put it in a pool, that skirt flares so well, even when you're not moving it. And then you make the most subtle movement and the whole thing kind of I don't even flutters in the
like
water.
Pulses. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an incredible skirt. Like that's what makes it. And then the Missile Bait Chunky D on the back, I think it's just the perfect profile paired with that skirt. But then the hook is also top notch. Like it's the perfect I guess, finesse, but power hook. Like I don't need to set the hook so hard because their weed guards it's not too stiff. It's the perfect combination of being stiff enough to where you're not going to get hung in brush, but also soft enough where if like you kind of like don't necessarily know if you have a bass on, you kind of just drag it, it'll set the hook in its mouth. It's just an all around the best deep water jig that I have ever thrown, hands down.
I have to try, because the thing that always, like, it's the blessing and the curse, I think, of like a living rubber is cool and it's great. And I think it's slept on a little bit now. It's kind of a little bit more old school type thing. It made a comeback a couple years ago, but it's like living rubber. A lot of that living rubber is just straight out. Like it's just, you put it underwater and it looks like a koosh ball and the koosh ball goes straight out. And yeah, it'll move a little bit, but not like what you're talking about, right? A lot of living rubber just kind of looks like it stuck its finger in the light socket and it's just straight out like a sea anemone or something, where it sounds like this material is just a little bit more pliable, where it's got a little bit more flow to it.
Yes, correct. I think that's what's so unique about it. I mean, it's been successful like all over the country. I mean, Tally Williams got a Sentry belt on it. Like it's legit.
So, and then the head design too, it seems like Greenfish uses a lot of like Arky style heads. I know they have other things. They've got football heads and stuff, but why do you like that Arky style head? Because again, I think that's a head that's sort of slept on a little bit because it's not the cool new thing. It's been around for a long time and everybody's always trying to be innovative with this type of stuff, but it's just a tried and true fish catcher.
Totally. I think it's really good. I don't think that head matters as much as like catching fish. I think it more is about being able to come through brush really well. I can also skip it. Like a 3/4 ounce jig's not easy to skip if you haven't skipped 3/4 ounce jigs before. And on day 3 of Ozarks, I was able to skip it under docks and like get it in the right places to get bit. Because, that 3/4 ounce, the way it falls is it falls better, or it falls a lot faster than a 1/2 ounce. And a lot of times those fish need that fast fall for you to get that reaction strike. And I want a jig that'll fall fast, but under a dock. So I'm able to skip it really well under a dock. It comes through brush really well. Like I can confidently throw it directly into a brush pile, have it fall down the middle and feel, really, really good about getting it out, and not like kind of like, getting it out to where I have to really pull it and then it gets out of the strike zone or whatever. So that's that the head is the whole jig is perfect, honestly.
And then in the classic, you were throwing a headbanger, right? Too? Weren't you throwing that around a little bit? So talk to me a little bit about the difference between those two. Like, when will you reach for those that don't know, it's like the Ike's headbanger jig, I think, from Missile that you were throwing at the classic. When will you reach for one versus the other?
The headbanger is really good on hard structure, like rocks, like chunk rock. Like, I was able to pull that head down the chunkiest rock, like literally like shale rock that was like this, and it comes through it just perfectly. And it was really important because you needed to present it for long enough over the rocks for those bass to want to bite it. And with other jigs, you get hung, you got to snap your rod, you got to try to get the jig out. And meanwhile, that bass has been following it for 5 seconds, gets hung up. And then, maybe it's not one, they kind of wanted to chase it a little bit more. So that's where I'll pick up the headbanger jig. Super important on like when you're dragging deep rock piles, or like I was doing, like getting really tight into this, like kind of like deeper, steeper rock where I needed to drag it parallel to the bank. So that's why that the headbanger, hard structure, little rubber jig head, that archy head is probably like more of a brush, skipping style head. But that headbanger is really crucial on hard rock, or like any, like pretty much rock or hard spots on the bottom.
So last jig question here, and you tell me, because all we see obviously is like from the media side of things, but do you think the regular jig is starting to get slept on? Because when you mentioned Tyler Williams earlier, so when Tyler Williams was in that event, and they were talking about Tyler, throwing just a jig like it was a unicorn thing, where can you imagine going back 10 or 15 years ago and being surprised that someone is throwing a jig all day, where now it's like, oh, wow, he's out there throwing a jig all day? Yeah. What? It's like, I don't know. I think it's just a weird time we're in where the jig is sort of falling out of style, even though the jig is probably the most versatile fish catching machine that you have.
I don't know if it's falling out of style, but like, it seems like people, like I said, they're so interested in the next big thing all the time, like Damiki or, Christ, the fuzzy dice get more hype than the jig does. You know what I mean? So I think that's really what it is. You look at anyone's front deck of their boat, they got a jig on there for the most part. But I just don't think it gets talked about in the media. Like you said, the hype isn't as much because there's so many other lures that are coming out that are really, really good. But the jig has just stayed good for years and years and years. So like I said, why wouldn't you throw something you have confidence in,
So speaking of the lure that has stayed good for years and years, we have our last one here. We have the Senko. So help me fall in love with, I'll be honest, like I throw Senkos a lot, but I am a cheapskate. I am a generic to the bone guy on all kinds of things. You look over here at my tackle stuff, I've got BPS stickos all over the place and all kinds of stuff. What's your Senko of choice? Tell me why I should give more of a name brand Senko or a certain type of Senko a look versus others.
I don't know if you need to. I think it comes down to, again, what you have confidence in. I think there are certain times where you really want like a super soft Senko, maybe like a Yamamoto. Sometimes you want a Senko that's a little bit thinner in the middle with thicker appendages, like the 48 from Missile. There are times where you want just a generic Senko like the Yamamoto one, but like a Yum Dinger, like a little bit of a harder, like plastic. Yeah. There's sink rates and there's the way the action is. I fish all of them. I think that, at Fork, I was able to put to work all three of them, but that softer stick bait really played for me. Using forward-facing sonar is something that people sleep on when they throw a Senko. People don't think about throwing a Senko with forward-facing sonar. I caught 111 pounds on Lake Fork on a Senko using forward-facing sonar. Like bass love Senkos. There's not much to talk about with them. Everyone knows how they work. It's a slower falling bait, but the presentation with it matters a lot. I tend to shake it a little bit more than your average guy who kind of like lets it fall all the way and then maybe pulls up a little bit. I let it fall, but then I shake it a lot as I move it up the water column, because I don't think people think about it shimmying naturally, but I like to have it shimmy and like pop like that away. So that's my Senko speed. I don't really have much more unless you have, like, it's basic, but you just kind of have to feel out how the fish are reacting to it on the water.
Are you getting cute with anything in terms of like how you're rigging it at all? Or are you pretty much just Texas rig, wacky rig, Nico rig?
I wacky rig, I Nico rig, I Texas rig. I use a 3-aught or a 4-aught EWG. I use a number 1 Nico hook for my Senkos. I hate any other hook on a wacky rig Senko. And then I use the same Nico hook when I rig it with a weight in the bottom.
I love it.
So
simple,
like
easy.
Yes,
yeah.
There's nothing special about it. It's just about finding the area. Like that's why I don't hide anything. Like if anyone's like, "Oh, Kyle didn't throw that bait," dude, I did. Like that's all I threw. That bait or this bait or whatever it is. I mean, am I going to give you my waypoints? No, but I'll give you exactly how I caught my fish. You know what I looked for, how I fished it. I do not hide anything when it comes to that kind of stuff. Competitor or fan or online, no hiding from me.
I love it. And you also show that, like, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? You're in events where there's guys power fishing like crazy, and that seems to be, like you said, the move, right? Everybody's out there like, this is a, you know, a cranking bite, or this is a whatever. And you're out there, you're like, no, dude, I basically got like 3, 4, 5 lures I got the utmost confidence in. I can find fish that will bite one of these, you know, 3 or 4 things. And I think it's a good lesson for people out there. Again, don't get so caught up. Find your confidences, find what you really like, and you can make a bite. Now, I know that there's like a fine line between being able to adapt and fishing your strengths. But as long as you have enough strengths to cover a wide enough variety of techniques, you're fine every day of the year.
Yep. 100%. Jerkbait, Senko, drop shot, top water. Although I don't know many people that don't like throwing a top water.
That's what I live for.
Yeah, jig, you know, those 5 or 6, I mean, you could throw in there like a Demiki, that's probably necessary nowadays, but 6, 7 baits, man, it's, you know, now there'll be certain fisheries where you have to say to yourself, okay, like a fluke for like Murray, certain techniques like that. But I mean, for the most part, man, it's basic. It really is. And that's the root of all these other fish, all the other baits that are coming out. They're designed off of a different bait that is a basic bait, you know? So
just wait till I cast and you'll see it
exactly
in the flesh. Yeah. Yep. Well, hey man, I appreciate you hopping on here today. This has been a lot of fun. I have one more question before we go. We always usually end the episode like this. We have a question from a fan that wrote in, and you know, we have our mailbag section here powered by Dakota Lithium. Use code TackleTalk10 for 10% off DakotaLithium.com. This question came into us, and every once in a while we get these questions where it's like, that's probably not a great question for me, but it'll be a good question for somebody at some point. So this question is from Micah, and he says, what's the best piece of advice you could give to a high school angler like myself who has aspirations of fishing the Elite Series one day?
I think first and foremost is, you know, spend as much time as you can on the water. But the key for me was being able to find a way to financially support my opens thing. Because the last thing that I want anyone to do is to go out and thinking my first year, I'm going to make the elites, everything's going to fall in line. That very rarely happens. So I think having a financial backing, or whether that's through like, you know, something you've invested in, now you have some money to make the, you know, try to fish the elites for 2 or 3 years, or fish the opens for 2 or 3 years. I think the money side of it's just as important as, you know, the skill side of it, because you could be the most skilled angler in the world and still not make the elites your first or second year. Like you may need to do it for a long time. So having a consistent amount of income coming in while you're fishing the opens, because that's the only way to make the elites, is super, super important. And finding that foundation early will help you tenfold when you go to make that jump. You know, there's a million things I could say, but I think that's the biggest one, because having confidence in being out there, not feeling like you have to cut a check, that's huge. I mean, it's literally everything. 100%.
Yeah, I think some people don't realize it's like a lot of these guys have money from other means, and that's how they got there. Like they own a construction company, they own, you know, something like that. Where like that's how they got there. Connections.
They've made connections, and they have a support group financially that is like, you know, we're in it with you for the long run. Very rarely. And I mean, I did it with medical sales. Like that's what I did in the opens. Like And don't think that you have to be, everyone's like, oh, you can only make the elites if you're wealthy. That's not true. You just need to have something set up to where you're not only relying on sponsorship dollars or checks made, because that is literally a losing game unless you're the next KBD.
Well, we're glad that everything worked out for you the past couple of years. It's awesome to see you out there. Like I said, I think you are one of those guys that everybody just seems to be gravitated toward. And someone you can't help but root for is Kyle Patrick when you see you out there. So hats off to you. We're excited for you. We're excited to see the next couple of events here and how the rest of the season goes. And we appreciate you stopping by. Before you go, can you give folks a shout out of where they can keep up with you on social media and all that kind of stuff? We talked about it a little bit about, why you should be following him. It's great content, whether you want a good laugh, whether you want good tournament recaps or all kinds of stuff. But where would you direct folks if they want to keep up with you?
Yeah, so you can follow me at KGP Fishing. You can go to my website, kgpfishing.com. That'll link you to all the social stuff. But it's just KGP Fishing on YouTube, Instagram. Where else? TikTok, I guess. I'm not as active there, but yeah, follow along. The YouTubes, I think, are pretty neat. If you guys want to just, see like fishing on the water. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been awesome to be here and looking forward to Wheeler.
Yeah, good luck on Wheeler, obviously. Looking forward to watching you, and thanks so much for stopping by, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, that is our episode today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, you can keep up with us at tackletalkpodcast.com. There, you can submit a mailbag question for your chance to be heard on an upcoming episode. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you can. That helps a ton. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Tackle Talk Podcast. And we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2021. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.